In this video, I'm going to explore Quincy's capability of handling data that exist outside of the normal e-discovery, litigation review data, or even forensics data that you might run into. Specifically in this case, I'm going to be importing some Excel spreadsheet data, and I want to make it sort of fundamentally part of my case. So to do that, I've created an empty case I'm calling MED5 because I'm going to be importing some medical related information. Nothing confidential, don't worry. All right, so let me do this. I'm going to do it almost entirely through the spreadsheet widget. So where am I? There we go. I'm going to open up the spreadsheet widget. Okay, the first thing I want to do is open up the Excel spreadsheet that I want to deal with. I'm going to do right here. And you can see a whole bunch of data has come in. And it doesn't matter what the data is. It could be anything, but there's a bunch of it. Okay, now I'm going to take advantage of the create record capability in the Quincy spreadsheet. I'm just going to go ahead and click on this, and I'm going to go run. And I open up this sort of dialog box. It asks me what target case I want. I'm going to do MED5. How many header rows? I only have one header row. It is, of course, important you specify the header rows. Otherwise, you'll end up with header row data in your case. You're always going to want to burn these in as documents effectively. You can select from all of our document category information, but I strongly recommend you stick with documents. All right, now we're going to add rows. Now, note you must have chosen your case already before you add rows, otherwise it won't work exactly. And you're going to want to add a row for every column you're going to import. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 columns here, so I'm going to go ahead and add 7. Let me slide this up a little bit. So I've got 1, 2, 3. It takes a while to add each row. I mean, a while, but you see how long it takes. It's not particularly slow, but it's also not incredibly speedy. That is because it has to query the database of the case each time and find out if there are any custom columns. So now let's go ahead and do our mapping. Sheet 1, column A. We're going to map that to object name. Then we have this CDC code, which we don't have a column in Quincy for, so we're going to go ahead and create a custom column, and we'll call it CDC. No spaces. This is critical. Spaces will crash it. These are going to become database columns. And you can see we can choose number, date, or string. We're going to go with string. Let's then map that to that B. Then let's go to C. C is a sticky wicket because it's a date. Let me show you. And there we have to make sure we choose the date type, or it's just going to be a disaster. Add date. We choose the date, and there we go. Now there are a number of different date fields here in Quincy already. I could have gone with file creation date, file modified date, any number of different dates. I don't recommend you use those, and the reason for that is those are columns that our evidence processor process into. So if you ever add records to these objects, you will overwrite those fields. So I recommend you create your own custom column date field, but there are date fields that maybe you can use. They will certainly work. It's just a question of whether in the future you accidentally overwrite them. So I'm going to go ahead and do D. And we don't have a current location. Actually, I think we might have a field for location, but I'm just going to go ahead and stick with custom columns. Make that a string. Save it. Case, which is E. Go ahead again, make a custom column. Case. We'll call it mid case. And I'm doing that because I want to make it specific. I'm not sure there might be a case column. There's certainly a case ID column that I want to avoid running into. So let's do that. Issues. Now issues are interesting. You can technically map into our issues field, but issues have very special meaning. They're used in the product in a lot of different ways, and it might not jive. It's actually quite a procedure to get them in like that. So I would recommend you use load files if you're trying to get in issues into our actual issue column. However, if you're happy with a custom column, which I am for this, you can just go ahead and use that, and you should be totally fine. It just won't create a facet. Where med issue and string again. And then finally summary, and summary is a safe one, and I do know we have a corresponding field in Quincy called summary, and that you should feel free to utilize. So anyway, I've created a lot of custom columns. I'm not saying that's the definitive be all end all. You can go find columns in the database. You can map to anything. You just have to be smart about how you do it and what you do. And date, actually one more thing on date format, it must be in a proper Excel format for this to work. If you do your import and it doesn't work, the first place I recommend you look is at the date format, because that is very likely to be your problem. So let's go ahead and run our import. It says it's inserting records. It runs very quickly. Found, insert, succeeded, perfect. Now let's go open our case and make sure everything came in the way we wanted it to. Med 5. I'm going to have to, since I was using custom columns, I'm going to have to go grab the right columns. You can see the summary already came in. That one I already had mapped, but let's go ahead and grab all our custom columns. Apply. You got to refresh the grid when applying custom columns, and there we go. We've got our med date in there. We've got all of our information. You can hover and look on the summary. Now that you've got this in here, I want to talk about updating and altering these records, because now you're really using Quincy a little bit more as a database almost than as a legal review, or at least partially. So we might want to alter these. So we can do that. So let's come over here to coding panel. And you can already see that we have all of our custom columns have become part of a coding panel. Or excuse me, our custom are here, and we can make them part of a coding panel. And let's go ahead and do that. Let's just double click on each one of them, and you'll see they'll populate down there on the bottom. And let's go ahead and add our summary database column, and let's add our object name column, and then let's call this med update. And let's if there were any users I wanted to give it to, I could give it to them here. But let's just go ahead and save that. Saving panel. Panel saved. Perfect. So now we should be able to come over here and actually look at our coding panel. And there it is, the various custom columns we created, and then the database columns we created. And I think that's all. It's all good, but let's go ahead and alter one. So let's say we've decided that no, the med case for this, we've got a med case for this, and we're just going to call it Bob. Obviously that's not a correct med case, but that'll at least make it stand out. We've got this record selected, checked, and we go ahead and save it. Job submitted. You can see that a job has been submitted. The coding's begun. Let's just go ahead and refresh the grid, and let's keep our fingers crossed that we find Bob. Now, it's important to note, look what happened. We zeroed out all these other fields, which may be very much not what you wanted to have happen. And that basically points to the fact you have to update these. I didn't click on the record, I had just clicked on the check, right? So if you just do check and you go and code this, you're gonna zero everything out. But if you select on the record, it will pre-populate everything, and then you can go ahead and enter it, and you should be good to go. Anyway, that's how it all works. Hopefully that's all good and clear, and this is helpful. Thank you very much for your time.